Hi, welcome to LZ23 Strength, where we exert ourselves, elevate our health, evolve in mind and body. And we're talking about a subject today that affects everybody, unfortunately, and seems to be on the rise more and more over recent years and decades, I guess, and that's stress. And there's all types of stress. There's actually good stress. There's when we exercise, that's a form of stress that's actually good for us. But we want to talk about the stress that's not good for us, that affects our health in a negative way, and all ages. There's no limit. It's funny. A friend of mine at work, we're talking about it, where how young people are always talking about how stressed out they are, how much anxiety they're dealing with, and when we were young, there were times where things we were anxious about things. I know I wasn't a fan of school, so there are times that I would be anxious about that, and there'd be other situations, but I don't know if we labeled it the same way. Looking back, I guess it could be similar, but now it's at a level where everybody's dealing with anxieties and stress, and young people particularly. But if you have to take care of a family, try to make a living, watch the news, there's so many things going on. Stress is affecting everybody, our jobs. So we want to talk about it because it is a powerful and can have a negative impact on our health now and our future health span. Some of the things that how it impacts us on a daily basis could make us angrier than we normally would be trying to deal with stress. Could make us sadder. A lot of people deal with depression, and sometimes stress is the trigger that sends them there. And there's constant worry, and the stress can become so I guess, deep or manifested that we worry about things that are probably never even going to happen. But still, the effects can be there on our minds and our bodies. Frustration that the stress isn't going away. It can affect us physically, where we might have a change of appetite, where now we start losing weight. We're so stressed out, we're not eating properly. Or it could go the other way, where eating is our coping mechanism, and we're eating anything and everything. And we start to put on lots of weight. It can affect our energy, where we don't feel like doing anything. Some people can be so impacted, and particularly it leads to depression, where they struggle to get out of bed on a daily basis. And then other things like desire and motivation, might not be motivated to do much if we're so stressed out, have trouble concentrating. Some people can have nightmares or problems sleeping from it. And all these things just exacerbate and pile on top of each other and can make us very unhealthy, whether it's cardiovascular related or other health ailments can have an effect. Some people get headaches when they're stressed out. Obviously, digestion, stomach problems, ulcers we don't hear about too much anymore, but obviously could affect people that way. People get skin conditions, sometimes related to stress. So there's no shortage of issues. Like I said, they kind of compound in a bad way and can lead to further issues. So we want to talk about how can we cope with stress? How can we deal with these anxieties that we're facing on a daily basis? Because we're not going to deny that things are difficult in the world we live in today. But there are things that we can do in a practical way on a daily basis to at least minimize, might not get rid of all the anxieties and stress, but minimize their effects on us, their impact on us, as well as their effect on our health. So some of the things that some are going to sound very familiar because they are kind of the answer to many different issues that we might face in life. And first one is exercise. Exercise, we've talked about in many videos that exercise is medicine, movement is life, and certainly even simple things. We're not talking about all the different aspects of exercise, but even just simply getting out for walks, just movement, and it produces hormones that can affect our mood and boost our mood. Anything from dancing to weightlifting. I know when I walk out of the gym after a good workout, I feel like Superman. So it definitely has an effect on our body and our mind. And when we're talking about stress, a lot of this is mentally related, but it does affect our bodies as well. Second area would be sleep. And now these are mind and body techniques that we want to keep in mind that can affect us and help us to cope with stress. So we want to shoot for 7 to 8 hours. Sometimes it might take 9 to get those 7 or 8 hours, but we want to try to be consistent with that, and even having a consistent time that we go to bed and then we wake up if we can. Don't want it to be like a roller coaster of different times. Nutrition, obviously, what we eat can affect us, and certainly if we're eating a lot of highly processed foods, that's going to impact us negatively along with stress. But if we're eating healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole foods, trying to limit things like caffeine and sugar, eliminate some of those if we can. And like I said, the processed foods, it's going to have a positive effect. Relaxation, we talk about things like mindfulness, deep breathing, listening to music. I just had a video not too long ago dealing with music and the power that it has in our lives and how it could affect us positively. And also even keeping a journal, writing down our thoughts, maybe some of the stressful things, writing them out, seeing them on paper. Also writing down things that we're grateful for can maybe alleviate some of the stress. And then simply getting outside, spending some time in nature, if it's the walks or gardening, whatever it is, getting some sunlight. We spend way too much time inside all year long, and getting outside definitely can help us in a positive way regarding stress that we may be dealing with. So along with these mind and body techniques, we might think of lifestyle and habits that we have on a daily basis. Now, we've talked about 3 areas that are 3 of the 4 pillars. We talked about exercise, sleep, nutrition. Well, the 4th pillar is connecting, having relationships with our friends and family. And sometimes we just got to pour out our hearts to somebody, whether it's a family member or a close trusted friend that we trust. So getting that connection with others, we don't want to be the person necessarily that's always talking about our problems. We want to be concerned about other people's problems, but there's times we might be so stressed out, just airing them to somebody can maybe take some of the weight off of us. Time management is a good one that we might not think of. I know I work with a lot of folks that whatever time they start, they're getting there literally right at that time. And I'm thinking, I've never been that way. I've always been early to everything. I think you're starting the day stressful if you got to fight traffic and you're trying to get there literally, especially if your bosses aren't too happy what time you get there. Living on the edge and coming in a minute or two before you start, I think you're already starting the day in a bad way. So how about try to get there 10 minutes early so you can ease into your day's work and not have that pressure right away. Also, trying not to procrastinate. A lot of times there may be things we need to do. They may be not life-changing, but they're important. The more we put them off and procrastinate doing them, it's going to add stress to our lives. And then sometimes just learning to say no. Our time is limited, so we can't do everything we want. We can't do everything others want. And so there may be times we need to say no and explain the situation. Whether others understand or appreciate it, I don't know if they will, but certainly there may be times we have to do that. And it's good to try to have fun time, hobbies, things that we like to do, whether you like reading, having some quiet time to read a good book. Maybe you have a pet and you want to spend more time taking them for walks or playing with them. Or as I said before, music, learning a musical instrument, having some kind of hobby, gardening, painting, whatever it is, to have something that's going to alleviate stress when we're doing something that we enjoy, especially if it's a creative thing too. And then we want to limit triggers. What's going to trigger us? Well, nowadays the news, there's always bad news, and that seems to be kind of glorified or put out there in the forefront. So maybe limiting how much news we're taking in, especially if it's bad news, or social media, sometimes focusing on the negative, things that are always focusing on the negative. We get enough of that on a daily basis. We don't need to bring it into our lives and be sort of entertained by it. So we might want to limit our screen time, or at least in those areas that are affecting our attitude or adding to our stress because we see such bad things going on. And then something that many people are dealing with. Fortunately, that's not something that I have to deal with, but many people cope by excessive alcohol drinking, and in the long run, that's going to be bad for your health on the even short term. But we're talking about a health span, definitely not. And then for sure, smoking, taking drugs, these things are all going to add up in a bad way. So I looked up some statistics. There's about 20 to 25% of Americans who smoke or vape or use e-cigarettes. That's a pretty substantial number. Not going to be good for health, and if that's the way of coping for stress, you might want to revisit that and look at some of the things that we talked about. And finally, the last area is mindset shifts. We want to focus on things daily that are good and that we can be grateful and thankful. And that's what we talked about before, even having a journal to write some of these things down. There's so many things that are enjoyable on a daily basis, things that we can be grateful for. But if we're just kind of zeroing in on all the bad things, stress is going to definitely take over. But if we can incorporate some mindful thinking of all the good things we have in our lives, or good things we've enjoyed, good things we'd like to enjoy in the future, that can have a powerful effect for us. And I heard this saying that nothing is as ever good or as bad as it seems or as we think it is. So sometimes it's our imagination that makes something more stressful than it is. So trying to get that situated can help us out a lot. And something that goes along with this is also challenging perfectionism. We want to have high standards, but we don't want to be so glued and so rigid that we have to have high standards, that's fueling stress in our lives. We don't want to go to the other extreme and have no standards and be very low in what we want to accomplish, what we want to be. That's not going to be a very happy life, but we don't want to set the bar so high that it's unattainable or unreachable, and we're stressing ourselves trying to be perfect on a daily basis. And then literally there are some times where we could be so stressed out and so overwhelmed that we might need to talk to a professional and seek help if it's having a major impact on our lives and our health. So we talked about a number of areas. Hopefully you can take those to heart. Something else that I saw that is interesting is trying to laugh more. It's hard to be grumpy or stressed out or mad if you're finding humor in life. And it could be anything from, I still love Seinfeld. I don't laugh hysterically when I watch it, but it'll get me to chuckle at times, or at least put a smile on my face. Shows like that. I also love King of Queens, Jim Gaffigan, Brian Regan. They've got some excellent funny material that you could look up on YouTube. Just hearing some jokes, even I'm a sucker for corny jokes and dad jokes that they put a smile on my face. So there's a lot of things out there to laugh about that maybe you have to make a specific effort to find it and incorporate it. But even something simple as that can definitely help when it comes to stress. So there's no doubt we're definitely living in critical times that are hard to deal with, and stress is not going away in the immediate future. We can change it currently. In the future, we want better conditions, but right now that's what we're dealing with. So if we try to incorporate some of these changes that we talked about, it will definitely help in impacting how it affects or doesn't affect our health. And that's what we're talking about here on this channel. LZ23 Strength is we want good health now, because all of this affects quality of life. So we're trying to alleviate some of the stress so that the impact on our life is not so negative and powerful in a negative way. So we want to implement these things of movement, sleep, nutrition, friends, talking to family and friends, and doing some of these other things that we've talked about. Not only will our health now appreciate it, but our health span in the future. Because if stress goes untaken care of, if we're not trying to mitigate it and do something about it, it will have a long-term impact on our health and our health span. So we want to take it seriously. With that, remember to exert yourself, elevate your health, evolve in mind and body. Also, smash the like button and please subscribe. Those who have, appreciate it, and appreciate it if you would subscribe. And decompress, get the stress out by doing these things. And we'll talk to you in a video soon. Take care.